Okay, so I'm Luke. I work for Yahoo. I also teach at Parsons, which is a design school that does some technology stuff. And I also teach at General Assembly, which is another education school, but it's not a university like Parsons or the new school is. They teach a lot of things like back-end development, and what I teach there is UX design. And so I want to teach you guys two things today. They're really simple exercises, and the name of this talk was how you can polish user experience with and without users. And that's a really important concept right there, because user experience design is all about how people actually use something or hold something. In my case, I work with mobile a lot and phones, and so the way people even hold their phone and walk around with it, that's really important to me. So I want to know a lot of things about how people do things. So the first exercise that I'm going to teach you guys is actually a writing exercise. I actually think that writing is a really, really important part of just coming up with ideas. And so this writing exercise, a friend of mine, her name's Jennifer Brooks. She used to work for the New York Times. She taught this to me. Do we have a marker, Seema? Okay. In the meantime, I'll tell you about the exercise. It's called the 4 lists of words. I don't really have a better name for it right now. And what you're supposed to do is you think of the thing that you want to make. Right? If you want to make something that is for real estate, we heard one of the presenters or people pitching about their ideas, and it was about real estate. And so if that's something that you want to make an app for or software for, whatever, you would follow this exercise for that particular topic. So the 4 lists are pain, pleasure, context, and context, that just means time and place. And the last one is behaviors or actions, and those are just verbs. So if real estate is the thing that we're making something about, or what's something more fun than real estate? Game, we heard an educational game. So if educational games, maybe, that's like the super topic that we have. We're going to write down words, phrases, anecdotes, anything like personal experiences under each one of these lists, all about education and games. So you take pain, pleasure, context, and behaviors, and you write down as many different kind of ideas that you have in your head about those things. That's hopefully going to reveal some of the nuances that user experience design is good at solving. When you, one of my favorite books actually about this topic is from someone named Aaron Walker. It's called Designing for Emotion. And when we talk about great UX, it usually means that it's aware of the way people feel or what they're doing, or you know, things that make it feel more like a human interaction as opposed to a computer interaction, if that makes sense. So by writing out all of these different words and phrases, we can start to come up with things like copywriting for error messages, and when error messages even need to occur when we're creating our product. So I'll say for educational games, someone shout out something that is a painful experience with educational games or education in games. Someone shout something out. What was that? Say it. Math? Give me a really, truly painful experience with math. Something like really think it out. Is it just math? It can't be math in general, right? Give me a personal experience, an anecdote or a story or something like that.
Math without numbers.
Math without numbers. I still need more like personal, like really get in touch with what is painful about math with numbers. What is it? Not knowing why something's wrong. Great. Perfect. So that's a potential point where someone could get really sad or mad about the thing that they're working on. And so when you kind of come up with these really detailed examples of what's either painful, pleasurable, aware of time, and we'll talk about the other two in a minute, but painful and pleasurable are ones where we can start to say, hey, it looks like you're having trouble assessing this, let me help you out. And so that's a feature, that's a design idea, and that's a whole development process that needs to go along with understanding how correct someone is, whether or not they've input that they need help, whether or not we just know like for a fact that this is a really difficult problem and they're probably going to need help at certain points. Developers can even do a lot of this work on their own by understanding and watching for moments when people sign off, or they quit, or they close something, and they aggregate all of these kinds of information together to find moments where you need to address error messages. Error messages are a really boring part, but that's one of the greatest things that a usability designer or someone concerned with usability is going to be looking for. So that was pain. What is another topic that someone's pitching an idea or is interested in? Or maybe we should just stick with educational games since we only have probably 15 more minutes. OK. Pleasure. I can take my time? OK. All right. Good experience with education or games. Educational games or any kind of game. That's a good experience. Learning something new. Cool. OK. So what does the system need to know to understand that this is new to a user or not, right? So when you start to think about profile pages or how a person exists in your app, it's good for you to know if this is a new topic for them or an old topic for them. And it's such a simple distinction, right? But that's what you need to design into a system, and that's how you're going to have a better experience when you know someone's pain points, pleasure points, et cetera. So the other two that are really important, and they're really important for mobile, and that's where I do a lot of work, is the behaviors that people do, and then the contexts. So again, times and places. And so when I think of educational games, what are the times and places that someone thinks of with an educational game? Someone we haven't heard from yet, yeah? At school, obviously, kids are, that's what they have to do all day long is deal with education and hopefully sometimes in games, maybe not. What were you going to say? Same thing at school, obviously. So if that's the time and the place, what are the conditions in a school that you have to meet for this thing to actually be successful? You don't want to take away attention or get a kid in trouble or things like that. So notifications, if mobile is something that you're really interested in, notifications are a really interesting part of mobile. And if you send a notification and it alerts someone's phone, or be it a teacher or a student, I don't know if students have phones in class these days, do they? Maybe, no, they don't. That's good. Hopefully that never happens. I hoped wireless would never go in the subway, but I think that's going to happen. And so phones in the classroom would be bad. And notifications during class time would also be pretty ineffective, right? So when is a good time to send a notification to a student? After school. Perfect. And so these are things that we can understand when we start to write out and list out really personal and just good, rich stories and anecdotes about a topic, be it pain, pleasure, or context. Now the last one, behaviors, are some of the more difficult things to understand because they're very abstract. Because you'll have a behavior like learning. That's something that happens in educational games, obviously, right? But learning is a really, really complex topic, and it's one that I'm really interested in. But as far as you list out all of the different things and actions and things like that people go through, you can start to get really detailed with those as well. So receiving grades or evaluation, receiving maybe feedback throughout a course, and you kind of do place it in the context a little bit, but there's still these verbs and there's these things that need to happen, and sometimes you can tie those with the pain points or the pleasure points. So getting something wrong, which is an action of sorts, could be directly tied to a pain point, and you realize some of the things that you need to create or focus on or spend more time on when you see that they're really connected to painful situations, or if they're pleasurable ones, that's where you can think of some of the more fun stuff to do, or exciting design elements. A lot of what I end up doing with these lists of words, anyway, is copywriting, so figuring out how to write messaging or calls to action, and then on top of that, prioritization of my time. So how much time do I have in a week? I've got 7 days. I don't like to work past 5 p.m., let alone 3 p.m. And so I know that I work best in the morning. And that's when I'll tackle some of the really painful ones or really pleasurable moments when I'm creating a new topic or whatever it is the problem that I'm working on, right? So that's the 4 list of words. OK, the last one. The last exercise is, are there any questions on the 4 list of words before we move on to this one? OK, the last exercise is, Yeah, scoot over. Yeah, bring it. That's great. Good. Okay. So the last exercise that I learned, or that I want to teach you guys about, is something that I learned when I went to school. I went to school for information science. That was a master's degree that I got, which is why I teach, honestly. That's what I'm doing with that degree anyway. I have to put it to use somehow. But really what I learned in it was all kinds of interesting ways that information moves through systems. And one of the ways that it does that we can diagram, is called a user flow. And we use something called a unified modeling language to do that. So that's a UML, right? It's an old term. It's kind of jargon. Actually, you probably don't even need to remember it. The real thing that you need to remember is user flows, okay? So from that pain and pleasure and context and time thing, we kind of get ideas of things that need to happen. So in an educational game, someone needs to get evaluated, or someone needs to know when something happens that's wrong. So we'll have a user with a linear task. Linear meaning it's straight, it doesn't like branch off and stuff like that. And so what we're looking for is all of the things that happen in that task. If I go into my phone right now, this is the one that I always like to point out. Who here uses Spotify? Does anyone here use Spotify? Does anyone have anything saved so they can listen to it offline? Yeah? Anyone have anything saved so that you can listen to it offline? Yeah? No? Maybe? Some? Okay. Okay, good. So in Spotify, there's a really direct, linear way to save something to listen to it offline, right? There's more than one, but that doesn't mean that we have to map them all with all these branches. We want to pick out every single one, starting with the beginning and ending with the end, right? So when I open up Spotify, I end up on a home page, and I have to tap something, right? I'm going to tap the menu button. And the menu button looks like this. So here are the two things that you need to know right now to go home and do this. You can do this on a napkin or a crayon and something, or a napkin and a piece of paper, whatever you need. But what we're going to do is we're going to map out all of the pages that I see and all of the decisions that I make, right? So boxes are pages, diamonds are decisions. And as we move through this, now I'm going to be on the menu page right after this, right?
I have a question. Is it a more comprehensive version of a sitemap?
No, a sitemap is something that kind of gives, it's like a map where it shows you everything. So if I was looking at a map of Long Island City, I would see everything there. This is just a linear task. It involves decision points, and we want to break them up so they're not, but that's a really good question, and I often get that question. So the difference then, a sitemap kind of shows you every single page like a big map versus a path through that map, right? Okay, so now I'm on the menu page, and let's see. So I've opened the menu, and now I have some options, and I'm gonna, and now the user could do any kind of thing here. They could tap anywhere, but I want to show just what it takes to save an album for offline listening. Save for offline. Okay, so I'm on menu, and now I tap search because I'm going to search for the album that I want, and now I'm on the search page, right? So I tap the search. Now I'm on the search page. Okay, bonus question. What happened between each one of these pages? Other than my decision. What happened? Other than my decision. What's that?
Data was saved.
Data was saved, so there's back-end processes that happen, right? What else happens that the user might see? A transition animation, exactly. So you have these kinds of moments that tell you things. So we can start to use more than just pages and diamonds to talk about a flow chart. We can use, honestly, we can use any language we want as long as we give it a key. You know what a key or a legend is, right? So if box is page and diamond is a user interaction or a decision, right? Then we might have a dotted diamond or something like that. That's a little bit harder to make for a computer decision, right? There's my drawing of a computer. Even though I call myself a UX designer, I am a horrible designer. And then a circle will be like a transition animation. There we go, transition animations. Animation is one of my favorite topics to think about with mobile, because what's the difference between print and digital? motion, right? It's one of the biggest differences anyway. And with all that motion that you have there, that's a whole new medium for describing and telling things. Like the transition animation for searching something might be, I don't know, these are really interesting, heady ideas that I spend a lot of time thinking about, and they're very complex. And I'm not going to be the one to say that I know everything about them, because that would be silly. Well, like, how could anyone know everything about something? Anywho, so we're going to continue along with this thing, and we're going to look at all of the different moments that some of the designers of products similar to ours or our own. So in my job, often I have to do redesigns. So I'll look at the existing thing, and I'll kind of map out everything about it. And then I know that there are competitors that do things kind of like me. So if I'm Spotify, I might look at how iTunes Match works, or what are some other music services that are, pardon? Pandora, Songza, there's so many, see? And if you guys want to go out and make the next music app, learning from your competitors and learning from like the place that people have already come from by mapping out all of these things, very simply, is going to be a way that you can do these things without users. Now, when you do it with users, and you see that this is the way that it's going to be done, and there's multiple ways that it can be done, you want to find out which ones are the trends that people use the most, and like search. That's the way that I went to try to find my album, but some people might already they might have other ways of finding it. Honestly, I don't know. In user studies, when I'm with users, watching them save an album for offline listening, they'll do it in ways that I never expected, and I'll kind of try to point out, like, here's where people had the most amount of problems, and so maybe a better transition animation, maybe better loading times was the issue, and so if data transfer is what I'm thinking about, then that's where I know that work needs to get done. Again, this is almost all about prioritization of where you spend your time and what you work on. So user flows, and then the, actually, I'll just stay over here, whatever. I don't have any slides. User flows, and then the 4 lists of words. Those are the 2 exercises that I think that you can go out and do right now. You can do them with users and without users, both of them. The four lists of words, I like to ask my whole team to, if we're working on, so recently we're working on a video app at Yahoo. It's called Yahoo Screen. You can download it. It's an app that I worked on. And it's all got like short 2-minute clips of video. And so that was kind of our overarching theme or topic, was these short clips of video. And so we did our 4 lists of words: pain, pleasure, context, which is times and settings, and then behaviors. And we listed all of these things out, and that's how we think about new ideas or where users might be having problems. And then when I bring users to interview, I'll have them do the exact same thing to see if maybe we're just thinking in a bubble, which 25-year-old white guys often are thinking in a bubble. So it's good to bring in people and get diverse thoughts. That's it. If you have any questions, please tell me. Yes? So it's based on the principle of shortening the simple concept of saying hello to someone, or yo, in that case. Yeah, so it's a whole app based on shortening one of these flows, which is something that every single person who in here has never texted hello to someone. Raise your hand if you've never texted hello to someone. You, my friend, you guys are the only ones. Maybe we got to figure out what you're not doing, and then that's the next idea. That's the next project. Okay, cool, good question. Anything else? More questions? 4 lists of words. Yes, go ahead. Yo. It's called yo. It'll be linear. There's just that just means there's multiple linear paths. And so I use a vector editor called Omnigraphal to draw these, and I'll just copy and paste it. For each time that there is a decision, I'll just make multiple ones. Keeping it linear is the best way to do it, because at some point you'll say, you know what, this route right here, no one ever takes it, so I'm going to cut this thing out of my app to begin with.
Given that there's a trade-off between adding functionality to your app and simplicity, right? Yeah. How do you manage that trade-off? What are some ways to approach the trade-off between should I add this type of feature in my app?
Yes, good. Okay. All right. Bonus exercise. This is frequency, and this is importance. Okay. Of all the features that you're thinking about putting into your product, you ask yourself, you ask actual users of competitor products, you ask people that would potentially use your product, anyone you want to, and you list out all of those different features that you would have in there. So educational games, right? We have scoring, and if you're doing this with real people, remove jargon and try to make it as like understandable as possible. So maybe it's like social feedback, or that's pretty jargony to be honest, but you get my point. Yeah. You list them all out, and then you ask people to plot these, and you look at the aggregate, and you look at how much people are doing frequently over what they say is important. And the honest truth here is with users and picking out user information, behaviors are more important than opinions. Right. So you don't, that feedback, that's like what Steve Jobs talks about is like, I don't listen to user feedback. What he really means is he doesn't listen to opinions. Behaviors are something totally different. People listen to music. That's why he made the iPod. Like,
you're saying like once you have an app, you can get like you can see how users are
before you've even made anything.
So what are the behaviors that you observe before you have an app?
Reported on frequency and things like that. So like how often do you actually get like social feedback or things like that? Now, obviously some of that's going to be misreported by users, but if you find them using actual existing products that are your competitors, you can ask them, they're like, okay, show me where that is. And if they have any problem actually showing you or talking about it, then you may have seen right there that they don't get it. But this is the means to understanding early on what people actually want to do and what they don't want to do, and how you prioritize that MVP, which is short for minimum viable product. More jargon for you.
How many users should you be testing to get it?
4 is what I kind of like level out at, but that you have to be, 4 can easily end up being 8 because like stuff, there are mishaps with the first 4 or mishaps with the prototype. And each time I change something like a label or anything, like sometimes I want to ask some more people. Yeah. Yes, so a great book on simplicity and user experience design is by a fellow named John Maeda, M-A-E-D-A. He was a former president of the School of the Rhode Island School of Design, RISD, and he has a book called The Laws of Simplicity, and he talks about how does he say it? I don't want to butcher it. It's like more is less when it's further away, right? And I have some problems with that because when you bury stuff, my short answer is get it to less. Get rid of stuff. You gotta find ways to make it more simple. If you look at the difference between the New York Times app that exists, there's 2 of them, NYT Now and the New York Times app. The NYT Now is so much more simpler, and it's better for people who appreciate that simpleness, but people who demand that robustness, if that's the whole, New York Times is going after a very large audience, so it makes sense that they have multiple products. So if complexity is your question, maybe you need multiple products. I mean, there's so many nuances in it, and there's so many it depends in there that. Oh yeah, deep linking. That's definitely a way to solve that. But these are like early ideas. How much time do we have? I don't want to take you guys. Oh no, we're at 11:30 right now. We can keep going, I think, right? Or do you want to get on to your next one? I'll stick around and answer all the questions you have. Yes, deep linking is a way that apps can move between one another. So Foursquare does this right now with their app Swarm, and when you go to check in, it moves between the 2. These are like esoteric, weird examples.
Do you have a story of a time when you and a designer disagreed strongly about a particular design decision, and how did you resolve that disagreement?
I have so many stories about that, and the way that I try to say how to resolve it, but I've never actually done it because I always get so mad and which is bad. It's not right. As soon as you feel your face start to heat up, as soon as you feel your heart beat a little bit faster, ask the other person, where are you coming from? You say, where are you coming from with that? Like, how did you get to that idea? You know, and you just slow it down, calm it down, and figure out what their thought process was, and that's a much better way to, like, you climb a mountain together, not from different sides. I feel like I should write a book about that. Yeah?
Is there a repository of common flows so you don't have to like reinvent the wheel to...
Is there a repository of
common flows that
yes, good question. There is starting to be more and more blogs. One of them is called uxarchive.com, and it's mostly mobile stuff, and I think it's mostly iOS stuff, so where's the Android love? But they have some interesting ones, and one of my favorites is called useronboarding.com, and they do these teardowns where they kind of talk about all of the different steps in there. But there's some that I see, like when I land on this search page, if I do this, type in the thing that I'm going to search, what does that assume? What does that? Even simpler than that. What? Pardon? Even simpler than that. What is the system doing that needs to enable this for me to type? From this page right here, when I tapped on I was in the menu, I tapped on the search thing, I go to the search page, and then I start typing. What is this? What has to be here for me to do this? A keyboard. That is a simple thing that you will start looking now. Whenever you go to a search page on your phone, if the keyboard's not there already, that means you have to type it. You have to tap into the search field once again to focus that search field, and you'll have the keyboard up. That happens so often. So just start looking for that. That's a simple little thing, but when you talk about usability, details are what matter. Okay.
you do anything this?
Oh yes. So very much. And the way that we do it now is live A/B testing. But a more accessible way, if you don't have access to the insanity that is Yahoo, you can use usertesting.com. It's a really good. Love that tool. And I use that one to do a lot of A/B testing. I like that one a lot. Usertesting.com. Super simple. Pretty cheap. More questions? User flows, 4 lists of words. I totally recommend you doing the 4 lists of words with your favorite topic or whatever it is that you're making. Don't pass this up. It is so easy to do and so easy to put off too. So think about what are the 4 lists again? What is it? Pain, pleasure, context. What's context mean? Time and place. And then behaviors. Good. Which are what? Actions, verbs. Right. Good. And yes?
How do you balance between UI and UX when you're developing?
Well, UX is a lot of this stuff, and a lot of times companies separate research from design. And sometimes that's really important because asking someone to do too much is crazy. I see you have all 3 stickers on your, or all 4 on your, so you do a lot. So, I mean, when you can do all that stuff, you do all that stuff, I guess, and that's about as simple as it gets. You know, I'm married and I don't have kids, so I'm in this weird bubble where I'm not dealing with the single world, and I don't have kids, so I have all this time to spend between research and design. But to balance UX and UI, UI. Okay, here you go. Here's the real answer. UI, human interface guidelines. So Apple and Android, now again, this is very mobile stuff, so there are also guidelines and best practices for websites, definitely, but in the mobile world, we have the human interface guidelines published by Google for Android, Apple for iOS, and Windows for Windows, or Microsoft for Windows. And I love Windows 8, or the design and the UI concepts behind it. I think it's great. Anyway, the human interface guidelines, just Yahoo those, and you might find what you're looking for. And for the UX bit, research, talking to users. You just get out there and test it. So UI is behind the computer, UX is in front of users. There it is. Yay! Thanks, you guys. You guys are a really great group. Thank you.